Hi, I'm Jackie,
And I'm Seth,
and this is Never TMI,
where we talk about real things.
and nothing is ever off limits.
Good day, everyone.
Hi.
It's great to be back on another episode of Never TMI.
Yes, it's currently, our view right now is snow.
Snowy in
which is
Dallas.
crazy. Dallas.
It's a beautiful day in Dallas,
I'm sure
Texas.
it's like a thick sheet of ice and not like powder, but that's
It's
fine.
not even snow. It's really like sleet, but there's
Yeah.
enough that it looks like snow. So
It's fun to look at. It's a nice scene to look at.
it's our snow day. We don't get many of these here, but
Yeah.
it's been a good, cozy.
Yeah, we had
Cozy
some
day.
hot chocolate, or I made some hot chocolate for the girls, and I made myself a little mocha. And Kennedy wanted to watch Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer, at the end of January. So we let it happen. But
Christmas in January is what it feels like.
Christmas, I know it really does, which is special. I guess by the time you'll be listening to this, it'll be what, February 1st?
Yeah, probably
February
about
2nd.
balmy 70 degrees.
In just a couple days from now. But anyway, we're very excited about today's topic. We are talking about our long distance experience, our long distance dating experience, and we literally, I feel like we did essentially long distance ish our entire relationship, even though I lived in the suburbs of Chicago, and he lived in the city. So that was like the time that we weren't technically long distance, but we didn't see each other until the weekend. So we never really got to like get that full everyday experience with each other.
Right, it definitely wasn't every day, but I think I consider long distance like
Far
you're
away,
not
of
seeing
course.
each other every week kind of thing. So,
Yes.
and that was the majority of our relationship. I think Chicago. How long was that? A year?
I think it was a year, and even
About a
then,
year.
it was like
Yeah.
we didn't. I would say 6 months of it was us like actively dating.
Yeah.
In my opinion, and then we did almost 2 years. No, we did 2 years because when we were engaged, I didn't move out there until we were married. So yeah, it was about 2 years. We were engaged for about 5 months.
Right,
2 years
so-
of long distance, and it was probably the best thing for our relationship.
Yeah, and I think that's a key point, at least for us as we look back on it. Like your perspective of long distance really
Shapes your experience.
Yeah, and it's kind of like the idea that you can always be grateful for something, and so changing your perspective to think that like long distance, yes, it's not the most fun thing, but there are things about it that can be really, if you're intentional with it, I think that can really be beneficial and actually set a great foundation for your relationship. And so we'll kind of go into some of the stuff that we did that we thought were beneficial and helpful, and we found like to be good practices for us just through that season of life.
Yeah, sorry. I was just thinking because I'll never forget I always had such a terrible, like, it was like a negative connotation. Whenever I thought about long distance, I was always like, oh, it doesn't work. Like, that's a terrible idea. And I remember my high school boyfriend, like, that is like us going to different colleges, which literally happens all the time. It was just like, oh, this is not going to work. And so we broke up before college because it was like, he was like, oh no, this was just like a high school thing. I'm going somewhere else. So that was always my like feeling. It was just like, oh no, long distance doesn't work. It's really hard. And they will cheat on you. That literally was just like my, and then any relationship that I didn't necessarily go to the same schools as the people I dated. And so it always was just like, if you're not able to like keep tabs on somebody, or if you're not, it's like out of sight, out of mind, they don't care about you. So I always had such a scary mindset towards it. And I remember when you got a job, I was actually talking to Morgan, your friend Morgan, And it was like the best conversation ever. It was the most helpful thing. And it was like 2 seconds long, but I was just like, I'm so scared. Like, And Morgan's one of Seth's friends he went to college with, and he's just a wonderful person. But and they were roommates, and I was just sitting there, and I think you were like getting ready. I think we're all gonna go out or something. And I was just like, I'm so scared. Like, I'm so scared to do long distance and stuff like that. And he was like, Jackie, he's like, you're talking about Seth. Like, it's Seth, you know, like, he's not going to do anything. And I was like, it's San Diego, too. There's going to be like nude beaches and everything. I'm like, all I pictured was like bikinis every day. And Seth, for some reason, chilling in the sand, like just seeing a bunch of beautiful women. And he was just like, no, it's Seth you're talking about. And like, he would never do anything like that to you. And it was just like, okay, like for some reason that just gave, like his friend, his roommate, like knew him enough to be like, he even admitted, he was like, I'm sure like there would be people you would need to worry about, but Seth is not someone you need to worry about. And it was just so reassuring. And so that was kind of like the hope and the encouragement that I needed to be like, okay, we're going to give this a shot. So shout out to you, Morgan.
Yeah.
Probably not listening, but it's you really helped me in that moment.
Yeah. And I do think it's interesting to think back, like, because I had a high school relationship that went into college, and we decided to continue it.
Mm-hmm.
And it basically crashed and burned. And so just
slowly.
And it's just like that concept, though, because I think I went into it super hopeful that, like, oh, it's not going to, like, a long distance relationship isn't going to be that hard.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think, though, the difference really was like spiritual maturement, at least for, I would say, even us, of just like not knowing who you are, and not even spiritually, I guess, but just like knowing who you are.
Emotional maturity, actual, like just character maturity, just,
right. And I think, you know, it came down to the point that, like, especially high school to college, there's so much growing up that happens in that transition. And then your exposure. Like, I went out of state for school, and I was just exposed to
everything.
A ton, like just a ton more in life. And you know, you meet new people. Like, I feel like you're becoming almost a new version of yourself. And so when you're not really rooted, and that's why I say spiritual, like I wasn't rooted spiritually, so I was probably wavering in terms of who I was and who I was becoming, more so than if I knew who I was spiritually at that age. And so I think that was probably the biggest thing for me. But then, you know, meeting Jackie, it was kind of like, once I knew who I was, who my identity was, I knew emotionally how I would handle things. Like, that's when it was kind of like, yeah, I know that I'm in this for the long haul, and the circumstances don't really matter. And so I was way more committed, and I thought I was at a young age, and I think that part of that was just ignorance. But you know, as I was older and matured, I had a confidence in myself and who I was, the person I was, the character that I had. Obviously, I had a ton of other issues. If you've listened to any more of the podcast, so I'm not saying
we by no means were perfect, complete human beings at all. Like, even at the beginning of our relationship, we partied, we went out, we drank too much, we did some things.
But I at least knew that I was committed to this relationship.
And that's the most important thing. I think at the end of the day, we both, when it was time, like when we were like, okay, he literally got a job, and it was like, all right, I think this is the company. And I was a very little part of that process. I was with him in school, like while he was in school and stuff like that, but it was like, I had no control over like what, I just wanted what was going to be best for him. And so he kind of made that decision, I'm sure with the help of his parents and stuff like that. But it was just like, okay, like, I think we both, there wasn't really a question as to whether or not we were going to like try, but I think we both were like, okay, we're doing this. And so let's set ourselves up for success by preparing and like talking and having the hard conversations and the scary conversations, and like both of us had no idea what it was going to look like. Like we weren't in college anymore, so it was like we'll be working. Like I was working retail, he had like a big boy job, and it was his first job out of college, and so that too was like okay. And then just his personality is very like dedicated, disciplined, very type A. He's gonna be the hardest working person in the room. So I think I was just like, okay, I don't know what this is going to look like. I assume he's not going to be the most available person. So like, how do we like literally prepare for like a marriage, or how do we take this deeper when we're not with each other? Like we're not able to see each other. And, you know, as a woman, there's so many things that you think about. I'm like, and I don't even know why. In my mind, I was like, oh, I hope the apartment that he gets is like good for like both of us, because like one day I'll probably be in it. And is he thinking about that? And it's like, no, he wasn't. You know what I mean? It's like I'm not a part of those plans. And so I think men and women are so different. And there was a part of me that had to just like trust the process and be like, take it one day at a time. Like I had marriage on my mind, you know, and I think where we were both adults out of school, it was like a ticking time bomb. I was like, okay, well, we need to prepare. So that was kind of my mindset, but I think yours was just a lot more like slow. Like the job was the focus, whereas my focus was the relationship. But there were definitely things that I think made it. I mean, if we look back, I feel like we could both say it was really successful. Like our dating relationship, once we were long distance, I feel like
I think
it was good. It was healthy.
Yeah, we have a positive outlook on it.
Totally.
And so I do think though, and this wasn't even one of our points, but I would say the first point, or the thing as we're talking through this that sticks to me, is like, for a long distance relationship to work, like a piece of advice I would give is you guys have to know that you're committed to the relationship, and not that the relationship has to work out, but you have to know that I'm committed to seeing this through
and to giving my best.
Exactly. And so it's like, and you know, you may start walking on that road, and there might be things that come up that's you know, non-negotiables. That's like, okay, this isn't going to work, but I gave my best, and I know you did the same. So having that mutual understanding of commitment to say, you know, whether this works or not, we're going to take it, like you're saying, day by day, and you know, with the long game in mind, that, you know, forbidding that nothing crazy happens, like we're going to pursue this. Because I feel like if you don't have that mindset, a long distance relationship really is unfavorable.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's not that it can't be fun or anything like that, but it's just like, what's the point of it? Because it's, you know, and we're trying to put a positive spin on it, especially for those people who have either done it or you might have to do this. Like, it's, you know, ideally it's way better to be in person and spend that personal quality time with them. But you can still do that from a place of long distance. So
yeah, and like I feel like if I feel like, you know, kind of like you were saying earlier, it's like, you know, how dedicated you were, or lack thereof, to the relationship. Like if, you know, Seth was out there and he's like, all right, we're giving this a shot, we're going to give it our best, and his eyes are wandering and he's flirting with people and he's going out, and it's like, you can kind of do like a little self-assessment and be like, am I that committed to this relationship? Like, and kind of do the other person a favor, instead of like, no, yeah, like I'm giving my best, I'm trying to make this work. Like, I feel like you kind of know, like, why is it so easy for me to like flirt with these random people? Or why is it so easy for me to just like put my phone down and like not respond, or not really give, like, not put the effort into this relationship? Like, if that's not happening, I think you're kind of able to like know that, and, you know, quit lying to yourself and to the person you're like doing it with, and maybe realize like, maybe I'm not there yet, maybe I don't want this as bad as I thought I did, maybe I just don't want this to end, but like I'm open to like new experiences, kind of like out of college, where you're like, I just don't know what I don't know, and I want to explore that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but we can get to just our tips and kind of things that really, I mean, truly helped our experience to be a positive one. I personally think, like, yes, it's amazing to be in person, but literally if anyone has to do long distance, I'm always like such a fan of it and so excited about it because it was so good for us. And I don't think if we had gotten married and everything that happened the same, like, I don't know if I would have been like, I don't know if we could have done it or if I would have done it. Like, I knew his heart and I knew who he was, even though there were so many things that I didn't know. It was like, no, I know the man that I married to know well enough, like, okay, we can do this. Like, I know who you are. I know your heart. And I really do think a lot of that had to do with like not being able to just like hang out in person every day and just chill. It was like we talked so much, and
that's probably the overarching theme of all these things,
yeah.
And I don't know if,
communication.
I guess we're calling them tips, but again, these are things that we did, you know, in real life that we found were beneficial to our success. And not that, you know, we're experts by any means. That's our disclosure for all these. We're not licensed or anything like that. But this is just, again, talking from our experience. So,
and it felt fair. It felt like our cups were filled as much as they could be. Like, I didn't feel like, man, this sucks and I can't wait for this to be over. It was like all these things kind of set us up for success and helped us in that time to feel like, okay, we're good. We're doing this well, kind of.
Yeah. So actually, I'm gonna kind of switch these up just as we're
sure.
The first thing we'll start out is again, these are all kind of fall under the umbrella of communication, but something that we did that was beneficial, and this probably isn't, you know, I think this kind of fits our character as well and just who we are, but every day we would start the day with like a good morning text, and some of these would turn into quite lengthy
paragraphs.
Yeah.
Like the kind of iPhone message you have to like click because it's long. Yeah, it's too long.
But it was in some of our brother-in-laws will joke around with a saying called early and often. So like if we ever go out without the ladies or our wives, like, you know, or if we have like a guy's weekend or something where we're gone, we always try to hit them up early and often. And that's how you kind of stay in good graces with them. But so funny. That concept kind of applies here in the sense that, you know, making and all this really requires intentionality. And I think that's what makes it so beneficial, is it forces you to be intentional, to put them at least first on your mind or something like, you know, of that nature.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying this has to be the absolute first thing you do when you wake up, but before
your day gets going.
Yeah, before I'm out of the house or doing something, you know, it was a point to send Jackie, or Jackie would send me. We would both do it.
We both did it every morning, no matter what.
And whether it's who sent it first, you know, it's like a response.
It's kind of whoever was up early. Usually it was him because there was a time difference. It was earlier there and he woke up first.
And so sending like a good morning text just to start the day, like that really challenged you to kind of put your thoughts to words, to pour out your heart in a sense to them. And I feel like that always started the day. That was always something that we would look forward to. Totally. Some days we're super busy, so it's like if Jackie sent it first and it's a long text, I might not get around to responding to it for a while. But it was always something that's like
on the back of your mind, like I need to do it.
Yeah. But I'm also interested, like actually read and see what she has to say. And sometimes if it's like my day is crazy, like I'll just say, thank you so much. Like I promise I'll respond to this later or whatever. But like, I love you.
For the most part, it was like every morning it was something that we could look forward to. And yes, there were some days that it was like, man, I really don't have time to do this. But like, let me just whip this out real quick. But it really like, and even if, for example, like 90% of them were very affirming, very lovey-dovey, very kind of like a love note. It was just like, it wasn't just like, morning, hope you have a good day. It was like, I love you so much. I'm so proud of you. I'm so thankful for you. You know, you're the man I've prayed for. It was just like really a moment to sit down and be like, even if I don't even get to talk to you for the rest of today, I want you to know that I love you. I'm thinking of you and I'm thankful for you. I'm praying for you today. And that's it. It takes 2 to 4 minutes out of your entire day. And I think that it just really filled up both of our cups for the day. Like we were doing totally different things. We had completely different schedules. Some days were super busy, mostly for him. But it was just like a time. It was just a time that we dedicated to each other. That was very intentional. And yes, it was redundant sometimes. Sometimes you were struggling to find something to say that was different than the last 300 days that you sent the text, but like it never felt like, I don't know, pointless. So that I always, always, always recommend that to people, just because it just kept us feeling close and it kept us feeling personal. It made me feel like this man is really thinking of me and he really cares about me. And yeah, so that's something that we both did every day, pretty much non-negotiable. That was really special.
Yeah. And I think the next point we had was, and kind of ties into that, is giving grace for each other's schedules in a day.
Mm-hmm.
And so, knowing what the other person is doing, always being, up to date with, okay, it's Tuesday. I know that they have class on Tuesday or whatever, like whatever your schedule is.
Mm-hmm.
And so sending that text, in mind of, okay, I know they have a busy day. So my expectation is that, like, I'm not going to be sitting and having conversations all day back and forth. It's like, I know what you're doing. I respect what you're doing.
Yep.
And, really just knowing what the other person's schedule is, and respecting that, honoring that, supporting them through that. I think that was a key to our success, is like not having these false expectations that, if I'm at work and Jackie's in school and she doesn't have class that day, that she's expecting me to just hang out on the phone all day. Like, life goes on. And so just being up to date with what each other is doing, and then respecting schedules in that way.
Yeah, and I think it's important to like, it's like, sure, would I love to sit and like FaceTime you or just text back and forth all day long? Yes, but like at the same time, like I want you to be like, proud of your day and the work that you're putting in. It's like, do I want you to be half on your phone and half working? It's like, no, like I don't think there was ever a time where we would just like text all day and be like, what are you doing now? Oh, here's a funny video. Oh, whatever. Like that we would send each other like pictures here and there, just like, oh, I thought this was pretty, or oh, I thought like of you or whatever. But the expectations were very realistic. And I think it just helped from the beginning. And I think it's personality too. Like I think both of us were, even when we were dating in the beginning, like it was very rare that we were just all day. And something my dad always told me growing up, he's like, you want to be busy, like be someone who has a life, be a woman who's got things to do. Don't just be, answering the phone at 2 a.m. because they have free time and you're, you're just waiting on them, or don't just like text them all day waiting for a response. Like let them text you. And so I think I was just raised with that mindset of like, it's okay to be busy. It's good. It's healthy to be busy. And if there were ever a guy that was just like literally wanting to talk all the time, it was like, bro, back off. Like, do you not have a life? It just was like, I think both of us were very, just gave each other freedom to like have their day, live their life, knowing that like I'm not the center of his entire world. He loves me. And that carries on into like the rest of your life, like like as we're married, there's we both have jobs. We're both busy. He is absolutely my number one priority, but like that doesn't mean that I'm just like at his beck and call all day long. And there's something so special about knowing that he respects my time, respects my to-do list, respects the things I need to do, and vice versa. So it really carried over, and I think it was just important to kind of manage like what we were wanting from each other. And then at the end of the day, it was just, and that's not to say you can't go to the bathroom and say, hey, thinking of you, love you. I don't, I always really appreciated that. So like, I don't know. You don't need to like go the entire day not talking to each other because it does take intentionality. But I think those little random texts were nice here and there. But
Yeah. And I think that's something that probably discussed briefly is just there's a difference between like pointless conversation and intentional conversation. And so like I'm sure some of you think, sending a good morning text every day, like if I don't mean it, why do it? And that's where I think, a relationship requires work and it requires the intentionality, even if
the emotion might not be there.
yeah, and it's like even if I don't necessarily feel like doing this, I know that this is something that means a lot to Jackie, or like even if I miss a day or something, it's like no, I'm gonna dig deep in myself to find something good to say to her to acknowledge her today because I'm committed to this relationship. I'm not just gonna take this off, and I think that's when you start to get to the slippery slope of like, well, I didn't do it one day, so what's 2 days? What's 20 days? Like that's when when you stop doing those things intentionally, that's when I think you get distance to come in between your
Yeah, like when you know it and you just let it slide. And I mean, relationships take work, and that's literally
right.
that's it. That's the work. That's the work part. That's the work part that we had to do. It's not always fun. You don't always feel like it's just like working out. It's good for you and it's going to help you, but you're not always in the mood for it, but you'll never regret it.
Right. But then that's not to say though that you just need to send something to have pointless conversation. And so what Jackie's talking about though is like, yeah, if you haven't, if it's been a whole morning, afternoon, and you haven't gotten a chance to say anything, sending like, oh, thinking of you, like that would mean a lot
Easy.
to Jackie.
2 seconds.
It's easy. But to send like to feel like, oh, I have to text you in the middle of the day just because I have to, like, not necessarily, like, that's not the heart of what we're saying. It's like, no, just
effort.
When you do communicate, put effort into it, and that doesn't have to be all the time. But,
yeah. And that's what made it special.
Right.
Every now and then it would kind of be like perfect timing where I'm like, he hasn't done that in a while. And it's like a little heart or something. And it just went a long way. But anyway, all right. Which one should we do next?
So I think another piece is FaceTiming once a day.
And usually happened in the evening for us because that was just the time that we were both available.
But I think that's important just because, you get to see the person and
see their face, see their facial expressions, see how they're doing, see them sleep in my case. But no, it is, there's a difference, even if you are so intentional throughout the day or whatever, like it's still special and important. And then that's when you really get to connect. It's like, I'm looking at you, I'm getting your vibe, your mood, your, all of that. Like, it's like, man, let's debrief for a minute. And sometimes, I mean, we did every single night. And sometimes it was just a quick, like, all right, I'm literally ready for bed. You're ready for bed. Let's hop on the phone. And we would pray. We'd switch off praying every night. And let's just go to sleep. Like, I'm exhausted and it's late and I need to wake up. It wasn't like, okay, I just made dinner. Like, let's talk for an hour. A lot of the times it was just a quick, like, all right, just call me when you're in bed. And we would talk for a minute and go to sleep. Sometimes we would watch a movie, like on Skype or Zoom or whatever it was, and just like press play at the same time. And, he would always fall asleep. He was literally known, and I would get so angry. That took me a while to
Did
get
it? You
over.
would get so angry until you realize that this would never change.
There was a shift. I would get so mad, and then I just was like, there's no point in getting mad about
Yeah,
this anymore.
because I
I think
literally
I just
couldn't
took it
help
so
it.
personally. I was like, oh, like, how could you? You're not trying to stay away. But here we are married almost 6 years, and it's the literal same thing. I laid in bed and watched Harry and Meghan by myself last night because he was snoring next to me. So I'm like, this is the man I'm with, and I just got to suck it up. It's a different personality, but that really helped to FaceTime
Mhm.
every single night. Just check in, debrief if you felt like it, and to be. And then this is another point, but like being intentional with your conversation.
Well, before we go to that though, I
Yeah.
think another thing you mentioned with FaceTime, like, you know, even once we're married, like being intentional with continuing to date your spouse in the,
Mm-hmm.
in the relationship
Yeah.
is huge. And I think FaceTime, the technology allows you to kind of do that even from a long distance standpoint. So, like Jackie's saying, any date idea, like until you see each other, the next time in person, like making a special night out of it, trying to
Mm-hmm.
watch a movie or, you know, maybe you play a game or something. I don't like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
you have to get creative with it. And again, that's where the intentionality comes in. But like using that for date nights or setting aside,
Yeah.
that intentional time, you can definitely do that over Skype too, which I think, would be a great piece of advice.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, as you were saying,
Do people still use Skype? I wonder.
Skype. I don't. They
We
probably
relied on
don't. They
Skype.
probably just
Maybe
use
Zoom. Or, I mean, the technology these days, you can
FaceTime.
do anything.
What did I say?
Sure,
Skype.
you can transport. Yeah, you
Oh,
did.
I'm,
But intentional communication, like, just, it can get so, like, because I totally remember, I'm sure both of us, big time, would feel like after the longest day, the last thing you want to do is like sit and be like, so how actually was your day? Like, did you have any good conversations today? What was the best part of it? What was the worst part of it? It's like, sometimes it really does take effort and intentionality and work to, like, just like it does in marriage, like
mhm.
just like it can today, to, you want to lay down, you want to sit on the couch and scroll on your phone. It's like it literally takes work, and these are the places that the work can be applied. But that does not make it easy. So I think being intentional with, like, it doesn't have to be every night or every day, but like just making sure that both of you are putting in the work to actually communicate and actually try to get to know each other and actually, like,
Ask questions.
ask good questions.
Yeah.
I mean, ask questions all the time. Like, even 6 years in, like, it's so important to ask questions. Like, every now, like, we'll ask each other, like, oh, what's something that you've never told anybody before? It's like, find something, because, like, we're having this conversation, or like, we'll talk about our past, or like whatever. Like, just, yeah, asking intentional questions and not letting the time that you're away just be like in vain, I think
Because
it's
I think
important.
that's the the slippery slope with long distance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is like the the ability to be able to not be intentional or just to
Yeah.
slack off, and like things become so routine and so monotonous that it's just like,
Out of sight, out of mind.
yeah, yes, and that probably defines a lot of who I am. And so that was something that was hard for me,
Mm-hmm.
So like, but really just, keeping yourself even on your toes to stay, I guess, relevant and current in terms of just like knowing them and continuing to find out and learn about them. And I think that's really where we grew a lot in long
Yeah.
distances, by asking those intentional questions.
Mm-hmm.
And that really set a foundation for us when we then got married and moved in. It's like, okay, I know who you are. Like what
Mm-hmm.
Jackie was saying, I know who you are because we've been intentional with,
We've laid the groundwork.
like, I've gotten to ask you 21 questions about, 600 times
topic.
over,
Yeah.
over 2
Yeah.
years. And so it's just like, that is really, I think, where we connected,
Mm-hmm.
from a long distance standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Oh, there was one more thing I was gonna say, but I might have forgotten it. If it comes to me, I'll say it.
Okay. And then our last little snidbit here would be
Snidbit? It's tidbit. You've said a lot of things in this episode that have just been a little off.
I feel like I have stumbled over my words.
What's one thing? I think at the beginning you said like maturation or something other than maturity.
I could not
Maybe
tell
it's
you.
a word. I don't know. But that was funny. Schnidbit.
I did not say schnidbit.
Miss Nesbit.
Snidbit, tidbit.
Yeah, it's a tidbit. But anywho.
We can edit that out if we want. The last little piece of advice would be, what is our last one? Oh, knowing the next time you're going to see the other person.
Crucial.
And this is,
yeah.
Yes.
It just makes it feel real. Yes. Like it just makes it feel like there's a purpose to this. We're doing this. I get to see that. And it really was like hopeful. I personally loved that like in between time where I didn't have to shave. I didn't need to try. I didn't need to like do my hair. It was just like nice. But it always was really exciting to just know. And also, I don't know, it was just like a semblance of hope for the relationship. So like if we saw each other and then we went back home, it's just like, okay, back to like the long distance thing. And not having any idea, like, and I think it was early on when we were like, we need to make sure we know the next time, because it made such a difference when it was like, okay, is it going to be 3 weeks this time, or is it going to be a month and a half this time? Like, but it allowed us to go home and continue to like put effort into this thing rather than like, woo, it was great to see them, filled my cup, let's just chill. So I think it really, I mean, we always made sure pretty much almost before we would even leave sometimes, like it was like, okay, this works with our schedule, whoever would buy the flight. And then, yeah, like that was a really big one for us.
Yeah, it's like a motivational milestone, marker that it's like, okay, like, whatever it is, and it might, like Jackie said, it might be weeks or it might be months, but I know in X amount of days, like we have this date set that we're going to meet up again. Yeah. And that was always something that, again, would motivate us, and we would look forward to that. And I think really, like she said, it kind of added an element of peace to it, so that there was, it's not like this thing is just in limbo forever. Like that was always a grounding point. That was exciting. We always look forward to it. Yeah. And, we were kind of working towards that together as well. Just like, okay, like, 3 more weeks, 1 more week, like we would really get excited about that. And having that motivational factor really, I think, helped kind of honestly make the time go by.
Absolutely, it helped the time go by fast, because you do miss each other, and we cried all the time.
And it was so fun. It's like, and the saying, absence makes the heart grow fonder.
Totally,
I 100% agree with that.
Absolutely.
Like, and so, even the longer times that maybe seemed like, okay, is this, if it's I don't know that we ever went 3 months, but
no way.
The longer it is, like, the more rewarding it is when you actually do get to see each other. And so those moments are always so special. But like Jackie's saying, the point is having that essentially planned. And we really did. I don't know that we always had our flights booked, but we knew this is the date. And
we just made it work. Whenever, and it was not always easy financially. Like, we were both not rolling, but like, and he was in California, I was in Chicago. Like, it was not, it wasn't just easy, but it was something that we felt like we had to do. And you put work and effort and intentionality and your finances to things that are important to you. And that really went a long way. And then I do remember what I was going to say earlier, and this can kind of be like the last point, but like the work and effort that you are putting into your long distance relationship will carry over into your marriage. Like, our intentionality and the foundation we laid, like, it wasn't just because we were doing long distance. It's like you're still working on a relationship. You're still preparing for, hopefully, Lord willing, a marriage. And that takes a lot of effort and intentionality and work and sacrifice and building. And, a lot of the things, like if you're kind of like not putting effort in, out of sight, out of mind, you better believe that when you get married, it's not going to change overnight. Like those habits and that mindset you'll still have with you. So it's like you can absolutely, like, I don't care if they're next to you or not. Like you can sit on the couch every single night and, and there's seasons we get into where we'll kind of turn on a show, sit down, and actually we were talking to our marriage counselors recently and they were like, turn on like a sermon or leave the TV off and like put your phones down and actually like talk to each other. I mean, we do talk to each other, but like, like make it a little more intentional. And praise the Lord, we have a date night every week, because otherwise it's like, that's like our time to really connect. But other than that, like it doesn't happen naturally throughout a day where you're like really talking about where each other's at spiritually, emotionally, physically. Like, so it, just because you're long distance and it's out of sight, out of mind, that doesn't mean that can't happen when you're right next to each other. You can be in the same room, and there's so many marriages where people just simply aren't putting in the work and you're distant and you're kind of not caring. So it is worth it to like put in that effort and put in that work, because that'll transfer over to like the rest of your life,
Yeah.
So there's a reason for it.
Right.
It's not all in vain. But yeah. Anything else?
No, I think those are our schnidbits for long distance relationships.
Yeah, it was the best. It was the best.
Yeah, just hopefully this is encouraging to you for any of those who are in that season or going to be in that season.
Yeah, absolutely.
It can definitely be a period of great growth. So if you go into it with a positive mindset, like it doesn't have to be a drag. And yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for listening.
Yes, thank you guys very much.
Appreciate it.
Again,
you made it this far. Oh, sorry.
I feel like we always do that.
Because you're trying to cut me off and get to it, but it's okay.
All right. Again, I'm Seth.
And I'm Jackie.
And this is Never TMI, and we are signing off.
Peace out.